Are you ready? Let's go. Ready?
Ready.
Yeah, ready when you are.
Okay, you ready?
Yep.
Okay, you ready?
I'm ready.
Holden Shepherd, Heidi Anderson, Jan Latta, Alison Patterson, welcome to my little show.
Why do you call it a little chat show?
Jan Nichols, Sam Eichen, Annabelle Smith, Donna Mazza, Rebecca Watson, Jonelle Fraser, Tracy Jacobson, Adam Wallace, Monique Mulligan, Matt Glover, Karen Young. I don't even know where I'm going with this. Welcome to my show. And welcome to another episode of Josh Langley Gets to Know. Now, just before we get into the interview, exciting news, my online course for kids, Here I Am, is now launched and is out there in the world. So just go to joshlangley.com.au, click on the link for Here I Am and have a look around the course, and you'll see that it's just will be of amazing benefit to a lot of kids out there. Meanwhile, hit like, hit subscribe, hit whatever it is for the YouTube channel so you keep getting these updates. Now, I have just finished having a conversation with Teigan Margetts. Now, Teigan and her husband have just set up, well, about a year ago, an incredible new publishing house called Ethicool. Now, it sort of piqued my interest because anything to do with publishing and the publishing industry always, piques my interest. And so when I heard about Ethicool, I want to find out more. So as a parent or as a kids author, I think you're going to find this interview really, really interesting because you will see that Ethicool has a very big point of difference and is challenging the industry, the publishing industry, in such a way that's providing parents and kids authors a new way of having kids books, reading kids books, and being published. So sit back, enjoy this chat with Teigan Margetts from Ethicool. Teigan Margetts, thank you so much for coming on my show. How are you going today?
Very well, thank you.
Now, Ethicool Publishing. Now, I'm pretty certain, I know a lot about the publishing industry at the moment, and there's a lot of kids publishers out there. Why is there a need for another one?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's really two reasons. Firstly, because the books that often you're reading are printed on rainforests, and that's not okay. So there's a lot of books out there that are printed using very questionable materials and in very questionable places. And it's 2021. We're less than 100 years away from a climate change apocalypse. It's no longer okay, no matter how joyful that story is, to not know where and how it's printed. So our books are printed using 100% sustainable materials, recycled paper and soy-based ink, and we reduce carbon emissions in the transport and the packaging. So you know that the story that you're reading to your kids at night is good for the planet. And then secondly to that, I think
I'm going to circle around to come back to that in a minute, but yeah, okay. Yep.
Yeah, please do. So I think we've really seen, in the last few years with the rise of school protests of Greta Thunberg and that whole movement, that kids they're not staying kids as much as they were in the past. They need to know, and they should know about the world's big issues. And I think that there's still a lot of publishers and stories that focus on entertainment, and we need that. But we also need a mix between entertainment and having those really important conversations. So that's really what we think we can provide to the market.
So what age group are your kids' books targeted at as a publishing house?
Yeah, it's 0 to 6. So we think that's really important from a development perspective, because children, they form and understand their values from about age 3 months to age 6. So the things that you're taught to care about and think about and do in that really early phase of your life, that reflects who you're going to become as an adult. So fundamentally, we believe, if we could raise a generation of kids with their eyes open, we really think that change is possible and probable.
So do you think, is it not too young for kids, like say a 3-year-old, to be thinking about saving the planet or reading something about environmentalism when they're really only just starting to grapple just being alive in a way? Is it too young?
Honestly, I don't think it is. And I think, a really powerful idea to us is that the issue we look at the world and there's equality issues, there's climate issues, there's lots of things that we could improve upon. But really the number one issue is people believing that they can't and won't make a difference. So, we've got kids who are this exact age 2 and 4. They already know why we recycle. We talk about all that all the time. We talk about the trees. When my son, who is just turned 4, goes to kinder, and we talk about, okay, so there's kids with different, skin colors in your class and who speak different languages, but they're no better or worse than you. They're just different. The kids, they see it, and whether or not they understand it fully, it's about planting those seeds and then knowing that in the future they'll be ready to have those important conversations.
So it's top down, it's parent driven down, then via the books into the child to really give that child a I suppose when you call it an ethical foundation for their values. So it's from the parents down. I mean, look,
and I mean, it's a reminder too for parents. Like we all sometimes need reminding that what we do matters.
Oh yeah, look, I totally agree with that. And look, I mean, I'm just playing devil's advocate here for a moment, Teigan. I mean, look, I've got a book coming out next month called Being Wildly Kind, which talks about the things that you're talking about there. Slightly older, it's more 5 to 12, but it does talk about those things, about recycling, about reducing plastic use, making something as a present as opposed to buying something that's plastic off the shelf from a department store, and those sort of things, and thinking about the big picture. One of the things, not to talk about my book anymore, but I will do, is that there's a thing about putting a map of the world on your wall so you can imagine all the places you can go visit because you cared enough to want to protect them. Those sort of things, and I suppose what's where I'm thinking is, the younger kids, is it too young to start talking about that? But what you're saying is, no, it's not. You're never too young to start talking about caring for yourself, for the other people, and for the planet itself. That's what you're saying, isn't it?
That's what we think, yeah.
Okay, so I want to circle back now to the printing. Now I know, look, publishing, it comes down to pure economics. It really does.
It really does. Yeah.
And that's what I tell so many authors, already aspiring authors and writers. They go, I want to get a book published. And I said, the first thing you have to realize, it's all about the money. The publisher wants to make the money. The distributor wants to make the money. The bookshop wants to make money. The printing company. So, and everything needs to be done at the lowest cost possible. And that's why I know that a lot of publishers would love to print in Australia, but China is cheap. Get it done. It's cost effective. You get a good quality product mostly. So what you're saying is that you get yours. Where are yours printed?
They are printed overseas.
Okay.
So so we explored all options, but you do need to balance whether you can bring the book to market or not, with what you're trying to do in terms of sustainability. So we, at the moment, have chosen the middle ground of, we have fully vetted our overseas prints. It is in China, our overseas printer, for their sustainability and environmental credentials, and made sure they've come up 10 out of 10.
Yep.
And we know that costs us 25% more than not caring about that decision, but that we are very comfortable with, because we can't very well have a children's book about caring for the earth and not have it printed sustainably. And in the future, we're hoping to onshore the printing of the books once economics allows us to do that. So we basically, at the point where we're printing 100,000 per run, we can get it done here.
Right. Okay. Okay. So you're working up towards that, but at the moment you've got that nice middle ground that you're comfortable with, ethically sourced and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. It took us a year to fully vet them in terms of their sustainability practice, which was so frustrating, but we needed to do it because honestly, I could not sleep at night pushing an environmental message but not living my values. I also think that people would expect more.
Okay. Now, what else? What type of titles are you publishing at the moment then?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, they're kind of sitting under a couple of themes at the moment. So we do have a big focus on nature and the environment, which has a lot of sub themes. Generally, doing things for the environment, caring for the environment, planting your own gardens. So that idea of provenance and growing your own food, that type of thing. And then we also have a growing sort of mental health list because that, is another thing that's quite interesting. So when children witness mental health issues in adults, they often think that, because children are very me focused, they often think that they're the cause of those issues. So one of the books we just released, it's called My Daddy's Shadow, and it's just the most beautiful poetry about a dad who has depression and how you can help and love those people in your life that are experiencing those issues anyway. So we think, that's just sending a really important message to kids that if you do notice these people in your life, and like 1 in 4 people in the world has mental health problems, to understand that it's not them. So that's another focus for us. And then we also have quite a few books that are focused on, equality and difference, and why we're all more similar than we are different, tolerance, acceptance, that type of thing.
And I believe, for me, I agree with you. You can't actually start early enough for teaching kids about celebrating difference, as opposed to just tolerating. Let's celebrate everyone's different and everyone's got their own place in the world. And if we allow everyone else to be as they are, the world's a much richer and beautiful place to be. Because I suppose it depends on, where kids grow up. If kids growing up in, a leafy little suburb in Melbourne or Perth or something like that, and all they are, they're seeing just, white blonde-haired kids everywhere, and they're not being able to expose in real life to what diversity there is actually out there. It can happen through a book and stuff like that. So I totally agree with that. I was going to say, before we started recording and starting this, you were talking about distribution. Now, I know distribution is a huge thing in the publishing world, because it's all well and good to get it published, but can you get it out there in bookshops, and can people buy it, is one of the huge things. Now, you've just signed a couple of deals, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. So we only started our business in March last year, so it's very new. We just turned 1.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So we made it 1 year. I feel like that's a big deal in this industry.
That is.
Big deal. And look, honestly, we had this was before COVID, when we thought we thought we were launching it, and literally, I think it got launched. It was kind of terrifying, like just a few days before lockdown number 1. But we just planned for it to be an online store, because if you look online, there's so few good experiences to buy children's books. And then it just sort of turned out that it could only be an online store because all the bookshops were closed. And then, it's just been a process of, we keep getting requests for people wanting to buy the books in shops. And we had signed a couple inconsistently, and it just was becoming too hard. And so we did a tender process, and we have 2 distributors now. So that's
fantastic. Can I ask who they are? Or
so Brumby Sunstate is one, and The World of Good is the second one.
Excellent.
Australia. We're working on some global deals, but we're kind of waiting till the rest of the world gets out of lockdown. So
now so basically people will be able to see Ethicool's books in their local bookshop pretty soon.
Yeah, really soon.
What about schools? Have you approached schools and the distribution for schools and the network for that?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's just been another thing, like after being told that schools will never buy from us, schools have already just been buying from us straight from the website.
Why would someone say that? Is it because of
I suppose there's obviously people that want to own their relationships. But yeah, so that's actually already been happening. And then us just sort of figuring out what would make sense for us in terms of how we do the school distribution, whether we do our own kind of like a book fair thing, because we've really got enough books to do that, or whether we use one of the sort of big distributors. And then, yeah, it's a commercial question too, because like, as you say, everyone expects a certain discount and you just have to figure out whether that's even worthwhile or we just do it ourselves.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, look, there are so many things to consider when launching a publishing house, and it's like, yeah, it's not like, oh, let's wake up in the morning, oh, let's start a publishing house. It's like, you obviously put a lot of thought and care and into developing this. Where do you want to take the business? Where do you want it to go?
Well, fundamentally, it's more, we'd love to just see this as a movement, a bit of an awakening for the children of the world, to really sort of think about the future and their part in it. But, we just love books. We love delighting children through books. Like, we already have a warehouse in the US. So I think it really is just about us. We thought that the US would be just a replica of Australia, but it's not turning out to be. So I think there's definitely going to be a few years where we just really figure out what the market of the international world looks like, and then post-COVID also what that looks like, given that, yeah, it was really interesting when I was signing up the Australian distributors, we got a bunch of interest from the US too. And then like I would write back, because there was about a month between when we got all the tender responses and when I got around to figuring it out and replying, and like there was I got two auto responses saying the business had gone into administration. So I think that there's just a lot of instability in the moment, and really it's going to be really interesting to see what happens over the next 3 years with publishing and distribution and demand and
do you think, I mean, I'm just going to go out on a limb here that certain parts of America wouldn't be ready for books such as yours to come out. It's like, I know the west coast of the US, yes, definitely, very progressive, but some other parts are like, maybe.
Oh yeah. I mean, but everyone who runs a progressive business has the same issue.
Have you come up against any sort of resistance here in Australia? Any people going
things, but it's it's people that would never really like. It's not really like we've offended our target market. It's sort of the people that the schools, the Catholic schools and stuff, they're obviously not interested in the books because they don't believe that Mother Nature created the earth. They believe God did. And they don't like us challenging gender stereotypes because they think there's nothing wrong there. But at the end of the day, if people aren't ready to hear a message, you can't force it on them. So we really just want to empower and inspire the people who are ready.
Okay. Now, do any of your books talk about any LGBTQI plus issues? You mentioned gender just there.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've definitely been particular, although this has been an interesting one in the US, possibly not particular enough about including diversity in the books. So there's a lot of different types of families that we showcase. One of the books called Tom's Tears that challenges what it is to be a man. So there's definitely that. And then we're definitely looking to expand our range there with books that, with books that could have a lot of meanings that could talk about a lot of things. So that's kind of where we're going with that particular one. But yeah, in the US, an interesting discovery for us has been we definitely need to have a lot more like Black characters with Black stories. That's been the biggest point of pushback in the US that we've seen.
Yeah. I know that's fair enough. It's when kids see themselves reflected.
Yeah.
Are you getting any Indigenous authors on board at this stage?
Yeah, we have put specific call outs out there saying that we're very interested in engaging with those people. And it's kind of that really interesting thing too, because we've got an editor who reviews all the manuscripts and stuff. But if people don't self-identify, you can't know.
No.
So We obviously choose on merit as much as we can. And then we're obviously just saying to people, like, we really want that representation. We'd love to hear from you, and trying to put ourselves out there as much as possible.
Okay, so if anybody's watching this and they're Indigenous, or they're an author or illustrator, or they know someone, get in contact with you.
Yes.
Okay, fair enough. Because I've always had this conversation with myself. This is, regarding at how old, what's an age you can start to talk about gender and LGBTI, whatever, issues with kids. I mean, look, I'm gay myself, so that's why I have this conversation with myself and other people. At what age was the appropriate age do you bring up this in discussions? And I've seen kids' books about, so-and-so's got two mummies, so-and-so's got two daddies, or whatever. And they're at a younger, and I think that's a great introduction to that. But from your perspective, is there a perfect age, or?
No, I mean, this is just the world as it is. And this is kind of what our brand is really all about. That's not like we're going to hide various elements of how things are until we think that, you're really going to get that. Like, if you would, discrimination exists from birth. People see that. Like, I think that when people, I would talk to my son, my 2-year-old, about this. Is basically how we kind of think about these things.
And just normalizing everything.
Yeah, exactly. The longer you hide things, the more I feel like that leads to there must be something wrong there. Whereas if you just like, well, this is the way it is, not everyone has this experience, but some people do, and it's so fine, then they're never going to worry about asking questions, or they're never going to think that they have to talk about that as a secret with their friends. The more that these kind of discussions out in the open, I think the better for everyone.
Do you think that idea is becoming more popular now? Or get more mainstream, or do you think it's going to take a while longer for people to be a bit more open about talking about these with young people and with kids?
Well, just change takes a long time. I mean, it's the sad fact about it. And there's many progressive voices, and there's just as many people that want to tear that down. But yeah, I honestly, I feel like we're definitely heading in the right direction. The fact that we can even have these things in children's books, maybe 20, 30 years ago, people would have really frowned on that.
You wouldn't know. Exactly, yeah.
And just one example that was just like so life-changing for me personally. So one of we have 2 sons. So myself and the co-founder of Ethicool, who's my husband, we've got 2 sons, and it's always been an issue for me, this idea of masculinity and what it is to be a man, and men can't cry. I've hated it forever, and I just wanted that to be a lesson for my sons from the get-go. So I wrote this book called Tom's Tears, the story goes that Tom loses his tears because his dad tells him that real men don't cry, but it's got a happy ending. And we've sold hundreds of copies of the book, and we got this beautiful piece of feedback. Actually, it was from an Indigenous family that said when the dad read that book to the children, he just started bawling, and he said to them, like, no one ever said this to me as a child, but I wish they did. I felt it would have changed the course of my life. And he was just so emotional that he could have this conversation with his own sons. So, you never know, like, you think, oh, it's one story, one book, one conversation, doesn't matter. Like, actually, it really does matter. It does. And
yeah, yep. I couldn't agree with you more on that one, Teigan. So, and that's the other aspect, I suppose, of books such as yours, is as the parents read it to the kids, because they are quite young until they start to read themselves. It's these important conversations between the parents and the kids questioning and going, and being curious or wanting to know more. And that even ends up challenging the parent as well, that they have to then maybe reassess what they've been thinking or their own values just through a conversation with the child. And I'm such a huge advocate for those deep conversations that happen over a book or through a book. And that, and I think, and obviously with the topics of the books that you're printing and releasing, you can have some of those amazing conversations. And an adult and a parent can go, really wish I had this message when I was young. but
Yeah.
now I can give it to my child, and I think that's a wonderful thing to do. Now you've got a competition. Is it running or is it finished? Or because you mentioned something to me earlier on, an illustration a story competition. Tell me more about
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. So as much as we are progressive brand, we are also trying to challenge how things are done, because it is 2020 and some elements of publishing need a little bit of a welcome to this century. So we have some amazing illustrations that were done by Francisco Fonseca. He's a famous a Polish artist, and we are running a competition to try to find an author who can write a story based on those illustrations.
Oh, okay. So you've been given the illustrations and then the competition.
We've done the illustrations. They're absolutely gorgeous, and now people have to do the really cool thing of writing a story around the illustrations. And what will happen is I think I'll have to check the deadline. I think it's April at some point. We're accepting manuscripts up until a point in April, and then our editor is going to go through and shortlist. And then there'll be 3 people that we shortlist, 3 to 5. And then basically we're going to get people to take a vote on which book they
so it'll be a
like
popular vote from the top 3.
Yeah, so we're not going to be releasing the whole manuscript or anything like that, just, a synopsis and a couple of sentences. And then, we're essentially going to get our audience. And I think we've sold over 20,000 books. So I think we've probably got about 40,000 people about that in our global network. We're going to get people to vote. And the reason we're doing that is because, honestly, our customers, they're our whole world. So, it doesn't really matter what I think. It doesn't even matter what our editor Roman thinks. The people that buy the book, they're the people that we want to reach, and we want to have a say in what the best book is. So it's going to go to a vote, and then there will be a winner.
Well, and obviously the winner gets published in this book.
The winner gets published. So we're a traditional publisher. So you get a royalty, and we get an advance as well. And then you get lifetime.
So I was going to get onto that. Before we get onto that, so the deadline is in April. They can just go to your website.
Yeah, it's on the website. I should know. I think it's the 12th of April, something like that. Yeah, there's still a few weeks.
Okay, so plenty of time to get in and to write that story and submit it. Now, I was going to say, let's quickly get onto the topic of the type of publisher you are, because we always warn people, don't go down the vanity path, yada, yada, yada. Now, you are telling everyone you are definitely not a vanity publisher. You're a traditional publisher. So you, as you said, you do commission-based. The author doesn't have to pay out a cent. And you even do an advance.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, so obviously, how do the submission process? Is it just standard like anyone else?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I just say to people, just use logic. I mean, we obviously
I'm actually
need 20 million letters and.
Teigan, I'm just going to do a direct message to all the budding writers out there. When you go onto a website of a publisher and they've got the ways of actually submitting, follow them to the letter.
Yes, follow them.
Right?
Yes, 100%. Please do that. Please read the submission guidelines. Do not submit novels. Do not submit chapter books. Do not submit things already illustrated. All those things. And then, just submit the story. And I've been saying to people, because they're always asking for tips. Just tell us, why is this the best story? Literally tell us. One of the reasons that we're doing it this way, where we're basically having a vote and getting people to promote their stories, because, we're a small business. We cannot afford really to have an author work with us who is not willing or interested in promoting their story and just thinks that we'll 100% do it.
I think most people, it is 2021, people realize that when you go with a publisher, you actually partner with the publisher.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously we're paying these commissions, and we do, literally it can't just be as simple as you giving us the manuscript and expecting your money. You still are going to need to be promoting on your social media, approaching bookstores, that's very needed. So in a nutshell, that's part of the reason we're on the competition, because we do want to see that people are invested in also promoting their story as much as we are, because, it's not cheap. It's like tens of thousands of dollars to bring a book to market. So we want to partner with people who understand that, it's a big investment for us, but they're also willing to do their part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no. What about illustrators? Can they submit as well?
Yeah, so with this particular competition, we're obviously we've got these couple of spreads, and Francisco will do the rest of the book.
Mm-hmm.
So that one is that sort of accounted for, but we're always looking for new illustrators. Actually, yeah, there was a guy, I'm in lots of different groups and for writers and business owners. And yeah, one guy has recently, well, I'm not sure if you would call it vanity published, but he paid to publish his book. And anyway, like, illustrators are so good. I just said to him, like, can you send us like your portfolio? I'd love to work with you, So we love to hear from people. Absolutely. You can't get your stuff done if you don't put yourself out there in the first place.
Exactly. So they can just go to the submissions page of the Ethicool website.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, quick word of advice for business people who want to work with their other half, their married partner or whatever. What's the one thing you would say about working with your husband or partner that's a bit of advice that you would impart on to someone else? What would you say?
Yeah. Well, I think it's kind of like really interesting, because you think, you live together, you share everything, like you're always going to be up to date with what's happening. No, we actually have a scheduled staff meeting, which there's really just us and people that work for us in various capacities sometimes. So we actually have a time dedicated to talking about the business. Otherwise, we just sort of get so into it that we forget to communicate.
I can understand that. I've done that same thing. Now, what about parents? Okay, parents, they're looking for, they're pretty up to date. They want to find some really different books. They're on the same ethical pathway as you guys. What topics have you got covered already in your catalog of books?
Yeah, absolutely. So we definitely have so much for those nature lovers. We've got the mental health angle and the equality one. And then in our sort of, well, I can't give too much away because we've like barely even told the next round of authors their books.
Okay, don't give too much away, but just, yeah.
Yeah, but we sort of, equality that encompasses a lot of different ideas, disability, mental disabilities, like all that kind of stuff. So we're sort of expanding out our range of how we inspire people under the broad umbrella of we are all different, but we have so much uniqueness to celebrate.
Well, look, I can only applaud you in your efforts, Teigan, because I totally agree with that philosophy, because obviously that's what all my books are about. Look, congratulations on Ethicool, and especially going for a year. Let's hope it's going for many more years. So parents can jump onto your website, find the books, purchase online, but also they'll be going into bookshops soon. And for authors and illustrators, go to the submissions page, read the guidelines thoroughly, or go to the competition page and enter that competition, and you could be getting a book published. Fantastic, Teigan. Thank you so much for joining me. And I'll put the web address. It's ethicool.com.
Yeah. Well, our US site is, our Australian site is ethicalbooks.com.
Ethicool. I'll put it down here so you can everyone go along. Look, Teigan, thank you so much for taking the time to have a chat with me, and good luck with everything.
Welcome. Thank you.